darling.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Tuesdays with Taylor. I am so excited about this week's guest. This is Travis Nelson. He is a graduate of Hempstead High School. He's actually the salutatorian of the 2017 class, and he is now at Columbia. He is a poli-sci major, right? And we met through Josh Lafazan. Thank you, Josh. And he is like the missing piece to the puzzle of progress and our push towards excellence for myself and our team. And I'm just so elated that you took time out to come here today. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, Taylor. I appreciate it.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's the son I would want. Let me just gush as a mom. I wanted a son my whole life, and literally I feel like I'm seeing him in the future. And Travis is it. He is a great orator. We met, maybe a month and a half ago, and we've already been to 5 events together, and I can rely on him to speak, and this is why we decided that he would be the perfect person to answer some really important questions for us. But before we start answering questions, Travis, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself that I haven't shared already?
Yeah, Assemblywoman Darling, I really do appreciate you having me here. My name again is Travis Nelson. I was born and raised in Hempstead, New York. Been here my whole life. A proud product of the Hempstead Union Free School District. Came through the Early Childhood Center. Started at Franklin School, now Joseph McNeil. Then went to the PACE program at Jackson Main Elementary School. Graduated Alberta B. Gray Schultz Middle School, and then Hempstead High School, class of 2017. I actually happy to actually announce and assert I'm now a dual degree student actually at Columbia. So I'll be getting my bachelor's of political science and my master's of public administration.
Sounds like we have another elected official, guys, on the way. Yay!
So a important as well as interesting thing that I've been able to be a part of is in the wake of these protests and the national outcry that's happening due to the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, as well as countless other names who, for the sake of our own mental health, I think we'd rather not get into. Nassau County took it upon themselves to answer an executive order that was put out by the governor of New York to create an executive kind of police reform order in every municipality or county within the state. And so I'm now a member also of the Nassau County Policing and Community Trust Initiative. Wonderful. With County Executive Curran, and we've been able to really engage and start to get past the contextualization of these issues and now into what are we going to do about what's happening on the streets and what we're seeing not just within Nassau County, New York State, but across the country.
That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful and so needed. Okay, so I am really excited about you serving in Nassau County in that capacity, because we really need to make sure that we have the proper representation and that we have the right people at the table to make these big decisions, and that really just kind of snowballs into why we're here today. I have attended several protests and rallies. I've even kind of helped pseudo-organize a couple, and it is amazing. It is a rush. There's nothing like that solidarity to be with a group of people that are all working together for a common cause. And, we knew the civil rights movement was coming. I didn't think it was coming so quickly and in my first term as an elected official, but it's here. And I looked at Travis one day and I said, Travis, okay, what is it that we want? We protest, we have this movement. What do we want? As a legislator, I don't even know what it is specifically that I could tell people that we want without making broad sweeps that would take, eons and tons of professionals to come together and figure it out. So I challenged Travis to come up with some bulleted points of what we want. So maybe in the next couple of rallies, we could be holding up signs with our list of demands. I hate to even speak about terrorists, but when people decide they want to kidnap someone, they usually know what it is that they want beforehand. So they're coming with the demands already. We are coming with this movement, and I still don't know what the points are that we want, that we feel will push us towards where we really need to be, and we really are not near that mark yet. So take it away, Travis. What do we want?
I will say, in thinking about these issues, I'd be remiss first if I didn't pay homage to not only Assemblywoman Darling, but what she represents, and that is what we're seeing in a portion, this leg of this movement is Black women like yourself really leading on the front lines. And to the Black women in New York City who I've organized with,
yes,
I really thank you for your example, for your leadership, and for helping me and give me the context as well as I would say the substance for even this conversation with Assemblywoman Darling. So the first thing I will say is, all the way back in 1966, the Black Panthers, they did something revolutionary, I guess, for the time, and they released this 10-point program. And it was about what we want and what we believe, and that was done by Huey P. Newton, as well as another gentleman. I can't. The name is eluding me at the moment. But it's interesting because even 10 years after that, 1976, that's the first time we saw people actually pushing for the repeal of 50A.
Wow.
And so something Assemblywoman Darling and I have definitely agreed on is that a lot of these reforms that we've seen, even the Say Their Name package that was passed early in June, we can be thankful that they banned chokeholds. We can be thankful that they're allowing transparency of police records through the repeal of 50A, but we also have to be strong enough to be self-critical and say, what took so long? Why did it take 2020, another Black man, even if the fact that it was in Minneapolis, dying in the same fashion as Eric Garner, who died back in 2014, for us to finally say we have to ban chokeholds here in New York State? So with the Black Panthers 10-point program, I think one of the most timely, obviously, of them would be number 7. And they stated, we want an immediate end to police brutality of Black people within this nation. And I think with the movement that we're seeing, with sadly all of the documented imagery from Emmett Till to Rodney King to George Floyd, we can say we want an immediate end to the police brutality, which is as a result causing the mass genocide of Black and brown people within this country. So I think from a federal level, what we need to see in terms of policy, and I know senators like Cory Booker and Kamala Harris have already started to push this forward. Sadly, they even got backlash for the lynching bill that they were putting forward by Senator Paul Rand, I believe. Sadly, I don't know why that would be commentary on why we don't need to pass a lynching bill in 2020. But further than that, we need to establish a national standard for use of force. Now, different municipalities and states across the country have their own jurisdictions and they adhere to their different regulations. But from the federal government, what we need to say is this is what we're establishing as the use of force that police officers around the country have agency as civil servants to employ throughout their various encounters. Because once we establish that, that breaks down the chokeholds, that breaks down, the being thrown on the street, the brutality, the brutalization of private and our citizens all across this country. And so that is the first thing that needs to happen in regards to the police reform, as well as just policy initiatives across the state. The second thing, and this was proposed in 2019 on the floor of Congress, it is sadly still just in its inception, but it is the revisitation of H.R. 40. And H.R. 40, of course, is the initiative that was brought to the floor of Congress to discuss, and create a task force to look into the feasibility of reparations for African Americans in this country.
And that brings me to our point. We do have a bill, Barron, Assemblymember Barron. I'm co-sponsoring the bill as well, reparations bill, just to pretty much create this task force, of community members and state officials, so we can start the conversation of who is entitled to reparations, how we want them, and when. And literally, it's just 3 questions, and we are pulling teeth to get this passed. And I've even had people tell me that there were not slaves in the great empire of New York. There were no slaves in New York. I mean, we are starting from the bottom basics at this point right now. So take it away. Keep going. H.R. 40.
Yeah, and sadly, it's just not the truth. And it's so interesting in the context of what we have as 2020. I guess also what it represents in terms of our
2020 vision.
Seeing these issues a lot more clearer. So with HR 40, again, it's just a task force to visit or explore the feasibility of this thing. And there was so much contention that came from different elected officials. I think I agree with the old adage when it comes to this point, a hit dog will holler. And apparently we hit a very strong chord, whether that is within the guilt of this nation, or it's overt or covert bigotry or racism that is still malignant across the nation,
or both,
because we had senior members like Senator Mitch McConnell saying we've already paid for these things through the civil rights legislation that was passed in 1964.
I didn't get a check.
1965, 1968, as well as having a black president. And
that was a gift to us.
Wait,
you let him in? That was a gift? I think people voted him in. That's not a gift, honey. That's not paying. Dude, reparations are money's due. You have a debt and you're paying it. You do not pay reparations usually with elections. Like, that's insane. Continue. Oh God, who's running this country, Lord? Please help us.
And it's sadly the back and forth, even as Assemblywoman Darling saying that we're seeing at the state and the federal level, that people are so contentious when it comes to this issue, as if electability and having black faces in high places is reparations to the issues and the systemic racism that still has compounded so many inequalities when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to wealth, opportunity, education, etc., etc. And so Ta-Nehisi Coates, I believe, he said a very powerful line in that hearing last year, and it was, there are victims of black plunder that still exist today, and people don't want to consider themselves as a part of the people who victimize those people. But we see it in the fact that, generational wealth has allowed a certain demographic of this country, obviously we know that demographic being white people, to really access a level of opportunity.
Preach. Level of opportunity. You said that beautifully.
Other demographics, namely black people, Latinx people, even Asian Americans and Native American peoples, or indigenous peoples who still exist in this country and have had their land, their culture, almost everything stripped away from them. Native Americans who still exist in this country, who have been ravaged by the promise that we set forth and the manifest destiny, quote unquote, that we capitalized on in our westward expansion and by taking their land. So those two, the federal level and national standard use of force, and revisiting, just creating the task force, because especially with all that's happened, it's so funny, like I said, 2020, it's given us clearer vision and insight into things that's happening, because there was so much contention about offering reparations, but when push came to shove and a global pandemic brought out, the government was able to pass and offer $1,200 to millions of Americans across the country, as well as small businesses. So now we can't have a conversation about people saying, where are we going to get the money from, or how are we going to be able to pay for this?
Listen, go straight to the printers. I don't care how you figure it out. Go straight to the printers, and please, I need to be on all the task forces, because I have some great ideas of how we can do this. And saying it's impossible and difficult is not a response. I'm done with that. I think we're all done with that. I don't want to hear it. Give us our task forces so we can figure this out. I'm telling you, until America rights this disgusting foundational wrong, nothing is going to make sense. Every time we take a step forward, we're going to take hundreds of steps back. Because it's almost like, who saw the movie like Poltergeist? We're built on top of the blood, sweat, tears, sadness of at least two people, Native Americans, people of African descent who are American because they were born here. Listen, we laid on the blood of this. This whole capitalist society is built on our shoulders. Yeah. Make it right. Make it right. Let's start a clean slate. And I'm here to help. I promise. I will volunteer my services. So continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and it's that passion as well as the context in which you laid that out that's important, that people really need to understand. Because until we right these wrongs, we really are going to continue to live in a farce of a nation and really be hypocrites of our own convictions. And that is not a reality that any American can continue to accept in this day and age and in a country that espouses so much of itself. I think at the New York state level, there has been a lot of strides taken in the last month, thanks to Assemblywoman Darling and her colleagues in the State Assembly and within the State Senate. And I thank you all for your leadership, for being one of the few legislatures and governing bodies around this country who immediately saw this opportunity as a time to act and really get things that will change the lives of millions and millions of your constituents.
Definitely. I wanted to shout out again our governor. I want to shout out Speaker of the Assembly, Speaker Carl Hastie. I'm going to shout out Majority Leader Andrew Stewart Cousins, and our Majority Leader in the Assembly, the wonderful Crystal People-Stokes. We have some incredible leadership right now, and I really feel like that is what set the tone. And I have to say, it is amazing to be part of the best legislative body in the United States. We are the empire, and I don't think anyone's more proud than I am that we jumped to it. And I want to definitely give a huge, huge recognition to the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian caucus. We have 63 members. So we have power now, guys. We have more members than we've ever had, and we have power. And, you know, our caucus jumped, leapt, did everything they had to make sure that we could bring about some changes in the wake of everything that we've been experiencing since, I don't know, the dawn of this country right now. So really, really excited about the state and how they've responded so far.
Yeah. And so there's been a number of legislation when it comes to police reform brought to the State Assembly. Like I said, they were very great with passing the Say Their Name package, but there's other legislation also on the floor that I know that you guys are still dealing with. And two of which I think that are very timely to name is the New York State police officer body cameras, that initiative. And I think that is important because here in Nassau County, we have two independent police departments. That's the Hempstead Police Department and the Freeport Police Department, because they're incorporated villages. And something that they did in Freeport that is nice is they instituted this already in terms of body cameras that the police officers have to wear. And a distinction that needs to be made in regards to this legislation is making sure that those body cameras are automated and not manual. In the sense is once an officer gets out of their car, the body camera immediately turns on because I believe the Freeport Police Department, their body cameras, they have to,
I believe they can. Yeah, because thinking about their privacy and different things like that. But exactly. I mean, I guess when you're doing something private, you just don't have the camera on, and that's how you distinguish what's going on.
But in terms of those interactions, having it being automated and not manual reduces the risk of anybody not documenting something that happened, and also it boosts the accountability level of police officers across the state, because as soon as you're getting out of the car, if you are interacting with somebody in a manner that is disorderly, that is chastising this individual, or worst of all, as we have been seeing, is prejudice, it is being documented, it is being seen.
That's really important.
The second legislation that's already been proposed is creating a law enforcement misconduct office. And that is very important because what we're seeing is a lot of the internal affairs that happens within police departments are internal. And so obviously, in an ideal world, we can trust everybody to handle things of their own volition. But sadly, due to, just high amounts of government impropriety, malfeasance, and just sadly, just a long history of things not being dealt with, we need an independent office that will handle these issues when it comes to internal affairs and police misconduct, so that we can act on those issues and handle those things appropriately and in a timely fashion. Outside of those two, so those are the two bills that are already been proposed. That is S8493, Assembly 8674, and the creating a law enforcement misconduct office is S3595, and Assembly 10002. So, I challenge you and, of course, your colleagues to look into those and see, as well as the reparations bill I know Barron is working on to push those forward. But outside of those, the only things that I would propose as well is something that is being championed by one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement in Brooklyn, and that is this Black History Education Bill. And anybody, all of us, I should say, have seen around this country that education is now becoming one of the most important things within this movement. There is a lot of learning and a lot of unlearning that needs to happen.
Let's sit with that. There's a lot of learning and there's a lot of unlearning. Like that's really powerful. That's really, really powerful because, you know, the hand that rocks the cradle, who knows what we've been taught? And a lot of things that we have been taught in school, maybe someone's perception or like whitewash version of what truly is going on. And that whole speech about African American history being taught in school, when I keep saying it's American history, you cannot speak about America as it stands since this country's been founded and a little before. You cannot speak about it without speaking about the people who provided the capital, like the manpower behind this country. We did not become a superpower because we had no industry and no working and no labor. We became a superpower because we had free labor and a lot of it. And we were able to do what it was we needed to do to take our place in the world. So that being said, the history, this is not an optional, every February we do an MLK speech or we have a parade. And that's for the schools that do that. You cannot teach history or any curriculum in America without people of African descent, without our Americans, our true Americans. You cannot teach that. I don't know how schools keep attempting to do this and the curriculums keep being overlooked. It's madness. I don't even understand it. It's madness. Madness.
And it's very timely because when you think about it, even from just an academic perspective, anything, you know, any of the great nationalist authors like, you know, Gellner will tell you that education is a very nationalist thing. How you are taught, how you educate your populace is a reflection of what you want internalized by that body. And so we have seen systemic racism, prejudice, and bigotry reinforced by our education systems by making Eurocentric or white history the staple and the core of our curriculum, and Black history the elective. I can speak, you know, from personal experience. Even at Columbia, that analogy is exactly, you know, the structure of, you know, our education. Our curriculum is built on, you know, the great works of people like Aeschylus and Homer, Aristotle, and Plato. But when it comes to Black scholarship, those are considered more electives that we can take and I do believe, you know, it's been a huge disservice to Black and brown students. It's something that we fight.
And to Caucasian students.
Exactly.
You're literally picking and choosing what people should learn. And you have to ask yourself, why are we being cut out of the curriculum? I feel that we are being cut out of the curriculum because a lot of people's worst fear is for us to truly realize our excellence that is inside of us. And I'm going to plug this platform, Excellence for the 18. I want my district and everyone in the state of New York and the country to know that Black is excellence. You know, there's not Black excellence. It's just Black is excellence.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been a time where there's been a group of people who for centuries have had everything you can imagine taken away from them and have still persisted to be great, to invent things, to survive, to have families, despite all of the money and obstacles that have been thrown at us to prevent it by any means necessary. By any means necessary. So when someone is hiding something, when someone doesn't want you to know something, you have to ask yourself why. Why is American history, as it pertains to Africans' contributions and experiences, why is that always off the table? Or why are we forced to research on our own? Why?
And to your point, Assemblywoman Darling, I do agree. And as much as it does plague, you know, Black and brown students by not having the things they're taught being a reflection not only of their existence, but of their ancestry and where they came from.
Their sense of identity, which you cannot function without a sense of identity. You cannot function well. You will function in a spirit of dysfunction without a sense of identity. I should write that down. You will function in a spirit of dysfunction without your sense of identity. And that is the golden key. That's the golden egg that has been kept just out of reach for many people that look like Travis and look like me. What sense of identity? What? We don't have one.
But even more so, and you raise the point, it's an even greater disservice to the white Americans in our country.
It sure is.
And I will say that because, like I said, in terms of the learning and unlearning that needs to happen, a lot of it is, I never heard about this, or I never, and it is because, outside of, those who choose to be willfully ignorant, people don't know because they never had to know. They were never exposed to it. It was always something sequestered. It was never something at the forefront of their education, of their reality, of anything that they saw. And so those disparities in regards to education alone are what breed a lot of the problems that we see. I was mentioning this quote I read earlier by Assata Shakur, and is that no one is going to give you the education you need to overthrow them.
Oh,
nobody's going to teach you your true history, teach you your true heroes, if they know that knowledge will help set you free.
Whoa, they don't want us to be free still. That's insane. Wait, we have to repeat that quote again. You know what? I want to read it. Hold on. Assata Shakur, that is the mother of the late great Tupac Shakur. No one is going to give you the education you need to overthrow them. Nobody, right, is going to teach you your true history, teach you your true heroes, if they know that knowledge will help set you free. I say this all the time. Applied knowledge is power, and you cannot apply what you don't have. So you get that knowledge, you apply it, you share it with everyone, from your grandmother to your dog to the gas station attendant, and you apply that knowledge. And that is how we push towards excellence and progress in this country. She couldn't have said, I couldn't have said it better. She killed that quote. It's true.
My family ethnically is from Jamaica. And so the great Bob Marley said it a little differently. He said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And so that understanding that knowledge is power. They used to say in the antebellum South and even post-Reconstruction, what's the easiest way to hide something from a black person?
Put it in a book. Put it in a book. And I'm telling you, my parents, I read over 600 novels by the time I was 12 because they wanted me to know everything from Wuthering Heights to I read so many books. What else? All of them. Like there were a lot of great black books from African American artists as well. But everything, like Langston Hughes to Edgar Allan Poe to Marcus Garvey to Zora Neale Hurston. Like I was always reading, and that has been that, and the travel and the strong foundation that my parents provided has given me, just a foothold. Like seriously, that's it. Get in those books, guys. It's really not on Google. Get in those books. Get those books. If you need a list of great books to get you started, please contact my office because we have it.
That is our battle on the state level. And so to repeat, that is, New York State police officer body cameras, creating an independent office for police misconduct, and this Black History Education Bill. It is the service that we can offer to the constituents and the people of New York State to counter the disservice of centuries of knowledge being pushed in a rather skewed perspective, as well as, again, impropriety and misconduct running rampant within our towns, within our villages, within our counties, and across our state. And we as the Empire State, as one of the oldest states in the nation, can be the first and can push this forward, again, for our futures, for ourselves, for our posterity, and for the betterment of us being New York State, always being first and always pushing the agenda in the right direction. And again, I look forward to yourself and your constituents. I'm going to be looking forward to those speeches on the floor.
Listen,
and those bills being passed.
You can definitely write my speech, though. Listen, we're in New York tough. I'm a busy girl. I was like, you can definitely write my speech. He's an awesome speechwriter. Awesome.
Outside of the federal and the state level, the biggest thing that we are seeing right now from the streets, from the rhetoric of different community organizers and activists that I've spoken to, is this movement called Defund the Police. and you and I have talked about this. It's not the sexiest name, and so that's why it's garnered the most controversy. But defund the police essentially is our push to ask for not necessarily just taking money from the police, but rethinking about how we appropriate money to the police department and around municipalities across the country.
Yeah.
So I've been organizing with a specific group, which is the group that has informed me a lot about these issues, Strategy for Black Lives. Shout out to them, as well as in conjunction with also other leaders on the front lines like Warriors in the Garden, Freedom March NYC, Black Lives Matter Greater New York. Again, mostly all led by Black women who inform and have given me the context for the policy I'm telling you right now. So thank you guys if you're watching. But this movement, a couple weeks back, New York City had to propose their budget. And so they took away, I believe, $1 billion from the police budget. But in doing that, they were going to cut part of funding to an educational capacity.
School safety.
That would help CUNY students, I believe. And so it was one of my peers, Timothy Hunter, who noticed that he was a part of the CUNY USS delegation. So they cover those issues. And had we not paid attention to those, they would have answered our demands by disserving us in another way. And of course, we are not constituents of New York City, but it's a part of rethinking that process and allowing us to pay attention.
Exactly, and the paying attention is so important. And that's why, again, I felt it was very important for you to come here today, because those specific asks are important. I don't support a lot of things that are said because, as Travis stated, they're not stated the right way, and they're too general. I like specific asks. Like a better ask would have been apply some of the police budget to social programs and community programs. Like I'm all for that. Let's work on that. But defunding the police, we live in New York. Like we need to have public safety.
Yeah.
We need to have public safety. And I even like the idea of them just being called public safety. Like we need public safety. Like if you get in a car accident, who are you calling to write up the report? If someone breaks into your house, who do you call? Like if you're not there and you come into a broken house, I think that law enforcement serves a very, very important role in our community. I just really feel like we need to revamp, rework, rewrite the system that created law enforcement. And we do not need to be cruel and heinous to law enforcement professionals while we're doing this, because a lot of them come from our families and they are our friends. And people, I think, honestly, overall are doing the best that they can in the situations they're in. But on the second breath, there are also people who really love to hide behind systems and abuse them to push forth really archaic and heinous agendas. So,
and to Assemblywoman Darling's point, I give a lot of credit to anybody who decides to be a civil servant.
Exactly.
And we thank them for taking up that burden. It really is an immense burden. But to that point as well, I do believe there also has to be a conversation about the origin. The origin of policing comes from slave catchers in the antebellum South, and it evolved into this new policing state that we have now, that is, where we see police acting in a certain way in certain communities, but when it comes to our communities, they operate in a very, very different function. And so what we are saying as a part of this defund the police movement is not that we don't appreciate you, not that we don't acknowledge the work that you're doing, but we want to take some of that load off of you so that you don't have to do those things anymore.
Love it. Exactly.
And so specifically within Nassau County, I give credit to Police Commissioner Patrick Ryder and County Executive Laura Curran, because over their administration, they have started to doctor the police budget, a little bit by a little bit. I believe it's $950 million last year. They brought it down to $850 million in Nassau County, which of course is change in itself, but obviously by those numbers alone, that is a large amount of capital.
It is a large amount of capital. It is
going to the police force.
And I just really want to say, just working with Mountain County Executive Curran and Commissioner Ryder, those are two people. I have their cell phone numbers. I can reach out to them anytime. They are so responsive, and they are truly people who care. And there has to be something said about elected officials who are here and people who are appointed who are here right now during this time. it almost feels like certain people are blamed for certain things, and that's not fair, you know. But because what we can do is we can't erase what happened in the past. We cannot. But what we can do is be accessible and available to each other to work on solutions to change. And that is all I ask for my partners, my colleagues, other elected officials. Be available and be ready to do the work that is needed across layers of government, especially here in Nassau County. We do not have the time, the money, we don't have it to waste. We really could change the face of this county in a way that benefits all of us. And I really want to recognize, like I said, the county again. Comptroller Jack Sherman, we just had a Black equity panel. And honestly, brilliant moment. I learned so much. We got so much good feedback. And I want to state something that was really on par with solutions. One of the brilliant panelists on the Black equity discussion made a great suggestion. One of those suggestions to combat the disparity in curriculums across school districts in Long Island was to offer cross-district courses so that students, as long as they were enrolled in a Nassau County or a Suffolk County school, they'd be able to take courses that may not be offered in their districts, and they'd be able to take them for credits and learn online, especially since remote learning is the new wave right now, And I just thought that was such a brilliant idea. We got a lot of feedback from our constituents saying, how do we do that? What's the first step? So I did reach out to the state education department, and they said they don't really do cross-district classes, but a service or a service provider such as BOCES could create something like that. And I'm definitely open to hear what other service providers would be able to provide cross-district courses, because I think that's something that our community is really, really hungry for, so that you are not pigeonholed to take whatever curriculum is offered in your district, especially if your district is one of our very underserved districts. So we'll say that.
Yeah, and so and more initiatives like that, and really rethinking how we appropriate money is an important just step, and I think just revolutionary in its own self process for this next generation coming in. Because the reason or the situation surrounding the movement for defund the police is we're saying, if you think about the origins of how states work and just like society within itself, by allocating more money to social services, to programs, to small business services, to social services like, say, a family and children's organizations of social workers or community organizations, you empower people to solve their own problems.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, Travis, because where we allocate funds says a lot. I always say, if you want to know the answers to something, or you want to know what's really important to someone, follow the funds, follow their spending. That always shows what's important. But sometimes we forget that government is a living, breathing thing, right? Yeah. So we need to constantly be assessing what is what's working, what needs to be modified, and what needs to be just taken out of our legal system and out of our everyday life, out of our policies, out of our protocol, because a lot of these laws, a lot of these policies and protocol are very antiquated, and I don't think some of it's not by anyone's deliberate effort. Some of it's just when administrations change, people have different agendas, people have different priorities. But I feel like regardless of the administration, the priority needs to be assessment and evaluation needs to happen, and it needs to happen constantly, because we need to know what's working and what's not working. Maybe for the next 2 years, allocating money in one place would really help us get to the next phase of what we need, which would be allocating our money here. But what happens? Elections happen, administrations change or overthrown, majorities change to minorities, and a lot gets lost in the sauce. So I think that there really needs to be this assessment and evaluation piece that all of us internalize, so we know what's really working and what's not working.
Yeah, and so it's really understanding that if we take this next step up, we rethink how we give money to different organizations on the community level, which I believe is one of the most important. we will start to see everything from the state level to the federal level change because our communities are taking the authority as well as agency to solve their own problems. We've already seen it. Minneapolis has already committed to community-led policing. I believe Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti is already on track to start rethinking the money given to the police budget. And even in regards to just smaller initiatives, a little town called Asheville, North Carolina. One of my best friends is from Asheville, North Carolina. It is a place historically known for lynchings and just terrible behavior towards specifically Black people, but of course other people of color. And they have already committed to reviewing as well as instituting reparations to those individuals within that specific municipality. And so it's powerful as well as definitive actions like those that are really gonna mark this next generation and mark where we go in terms of progress. We can't be happy with what you're saying, the antiquated ways of thinking and the way things were done before, because as we're seeing with this protest with these movement, the way things have been done before aren't working. And so we need to rethink the way we're going to do things if we want to truly establish justice within our country, if we want to truly establish more equity in this country, and if we really want to bring the reality of America and the promise of America into greater alignment.
Yeah. I love that you said that it starts really with the community, and the community kind of sets the tone for what happens on the state and federal level, because guess what? The community elects these people to come into office and represent us, right? So that being said, I heard somewhere that we should challenge everyone, and I believe this was Elaine Gross of Erase Racism, so I'm going to go ahead and say that. To challenge everyone to see what hard task they could do by next Tuesday, right? If every single person in District 18 did something challenging by next Tuesday that they feel would push our agenda towards progress, equity, and the ultimate prize of excellence for all of us, what would it be? Would it be writing a letter to your local representatives, your federal representatives, your state representatives? Would it be dropping clothing off or donating food or going to check on neighbors, especially in the light of the pandemic, of course, in a socially distanced, safe way? Would it be signing up to read to children virtually? Would it be coming up with a game plan for a community event that we could have to kind of bring people together? You know, there's so many things that could be done. Would it be starting a garden and planting it, starting a plant a tree initiative in our community, knowing that children are inside, making, you know, little packages for kids who are going to be inside. There's so many things to do. Travis, you know, you might have some better ideas. What are some things that people can do?
So I in the conversation that we've had, proposed already, you know, six policies, two that we need to worry about on the federal level, national standard for use of force, the HR 40 and reparations, 3 on the state level, that is revisiting body cameras, this Black History education bill, of course, and this independent police officer misconduct offices. And all of these have already been brought to the floor and already being pursued. And then on the community and the county, the town village level, of course, rethinking how we allocate and appropriate money to our different community organizations, to our police departments. But the last thing, because I do believe that in numerology, 7 is always the number of completion.
I love 7. It's one of my numbers.
A personal policy, as you were saying, and that is to get yourself involved, whether that be taking part in a protest, calling an elected official like Assemblywoman Darling, so that she has the context when she goes to Albany to truly advocate for somebody, sign petitions, phone bank. You know, they still have not arrested the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. Calling up that attorney general and the officials over there, even as if you know, those were you know, your own people. And why I say it's a personal policy, because a lot of times we don't think about change in that respect. But change is both an individual and a collective responsibility.
Say that again, one more time, because my team and I, we can't do everything, right? And we get field calls from everywhere, all over the state, sometimes out of the country because of how responsive we are. But I want you to say what you just said.
Change is an individual and a collective responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's only when we balance the best of both that we can really see the progress that we want, not just for ourselves, that's the personal, but within our communities, within our state, within our country, and then as a result, the world. And it's that domino effects. I think a lot of times we think about issues from the top down, but it is really both a top down and a bottom up,
and we meet in the middle. Like,
exactly.
Do that. Yep. Do that. No such thing as too many efforts or too much efforts going towards change. So I am just so proud of you. I don't know how you know so much. Actually, let me ask you so people know how he is 21 years old. I'm just gonna put that out there. He's 21, okay? And I learn from him every time I meet him. How do you know so much?
I really have to give all thanks, to my mother. My mother came here. It was the anniversary of her coming to the United States this past Saturday. And
congratulations.
Something
Mom.
about that meant a lot to me. My mother came to this country in 1989.
Wow.
And so unlike, some of the other people who look like me, my ancestors historically were not slaves in this country. They were probably slaves
in
elsewhere.
Jamaica. Mm-hmm.
But I still do believe for her to come here off the strength of the promise of what we can be, of what America is, and that is hopefulness.
Yeah.
That is progress. That is, the ability for you to make something of nothing.
Yeah.
And that is why people like Assemblywoman Taylor Darling and I, people of African descent and just our citizens across the country have so much pride in this country, because if we can truly realize America where that is actually a fact and not an exception just for certain people, then we truly will be living in the promise of our forefathers.
Yes, I love it. Shout out to Harriet Tubman, who was gonna have a $20 bill this year, but broke my heart. I had a whole party planned, but whatever. I just want to thank you so much for being here, and I want to thank you for your partnership and just this relationship that we built, because it's so important. We represent so many people when we walk into every room, and there's so many rooms where you and I will be the only you and I in the room.
Collaboration over competition, always.
It is, and it's just great because we have to support one another, and especially those who are really, like you said, black faces in high places.
Yeah. This
man's been in a room with a lot of great people, and that number is only going to increase, and he is a great person. So I'm just happy to know that, the only governor of African American descent did hail from Hempstead.
Yeah.
Hello, Governor Patterson. And it just means something, I live in the village of Hempstead. He lives in the village of Hempstead. It's real. There's something magical happening here, and I'm just happy to see it really come to fruition. So thank you for your time, Travis. And I hope we all learned something today, and we all are excited about what it is that we're going to do this week to push that agenda. By next Tuesday, what are you going to do?
It was a pleasure.